us through that process for you adapting your own work.
Well, I mean, of course, one of the things that's different is at least the implied passage of time, which in the book is more explicit. I mean, ravens are very cool to bring messages, but they're not as fast as like telegraph lines or Twitter. They're not instantaneous. So we establish the events happening in King's Landing and Ned's downfall and imprisonment, and then Sansa being coerced into writing this letter. And then the next thing you know, Joffrey is getting the letter, where, of course, weeks have passed while the letter was dispatched by a raven, and the raven made its way north. It takes a while. And then the calling the banners, which, it goes from this scene to the banners are all there. And, of course, it takes quite a while for the banners to assemble. They each have to get that raven, they get the message, they send out the word to their own villages and their sworn men and their feudal undermen, and they assemble as many men they can, and then they have to march great distances to Winterfell, where the army is assembling. And some of this is established fairly clearly in the books. I mean, the chapter of the assembly of the army is told from Bran's viewpoint, and he sees the Karstarks coming in, and the other people are there, and we get the introduction to many of the lords, while Bran just simply thinks about them. Well, these are the Karstarks, and they're from Carhold, and the Umbers are already here, and the Serwins were the first to arrive, or whatever he thinks about. And you get the introduction to these various families and feudal houses and what their heraldry is. A lot of exposition, but told hopefully in an interesting manner from and filtered through Bran's viewpoint. When I first wrote this adaptation, I actually changed it somewhat, and I wrote a whole scene where the banners fly off, as you see, and then you see men getting the banners. I didn't try to do all of the principal lords of the North, but I did some of the ones who I thought would be important characters, like you see Roose Bolton, his maester is delivering him a letter, and he's in the midst of flaying someone, but he breaks off to read the letter, and and you see the great John Umber getting the letter, and he's got his tankard of beer, and yes, it's war, let's get together and go off, and the Karstarks are marching out, and you see Mage Mormont's fleet is setting sail from Bear Island, and it was a montage. There was no dialogue in it. It was just visual images of the different places that we could. Montages were always my weakness when I was in Hollywood. I would commit montage at the drop of a hat. It was very sad. Maybe I just like that word montage.
It's a good one.
And of course, when I submitted that first draft, Dan and David read it, and David called me up and said, "George, this montage is fabulous, but it would realize it would cost 5 times our budget for the entire season to do it here. So we won't do it that way. All right, just have the ravens fly out."
People will get it.
That's the practicality of having to do these things, frequently dictates, you have to eliminate sequences or combine characters or imply things rather than actually show things. I mean, I noticed also that first scene, the arrival of King Robert, the Cersei's wheelhouse that you see coming up, again, is a departure from the books. I mean, in the books, the wheelhouse is so big that it cannot fit inside Winterfell. The gateway is too large for it to get into the courtyard. It's like a giant medieval Winnebago with like 3 stories, and it takes like 40 horses to pull it down the road. Cersei is traveling in style. And it's great, but of course it would have cost us a small fortune to build a giant 3-story wheelhouse drawn by 40 horses or so. So they found this, gypsy thing or whatever that they have there, and it's pretty nice.
And are you okay with that, or does it break your heart at all? How does that feel when you see those changes? And I can only imagine, thought about how that can't go through the gates of Winterfell, what that would actually be like, and then it ends up being a gypsy thing.
It feels okay because I understand the process, and I understand why these choices are made. I think I was in a unique position coming to this whole thing because of the 10 years that I did spend in television and film. I was on the other side of this process.